Secretary Roads and Infrastructure is still with us here, but just a quick update here. I'm getting an update that the Kenya-EU Economic Partnership Agreement has already been ratified by both houses of parliament, that is the Senate and the National Assembly. I mentioned earlier on that it will go to them, but I'm getting an update that the Kenya-EU Economic Partnership Agreement has already been ratified. So, CS, let's talk about the aviation industry now. What is ailing the national airline, KQ? Kenya Airways, of course, is the pride of Africa. And it's one of the reasons why Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and our country is a transport hub. Is because if you have an airline operating from your own country, and for a long period of time, it was the leading airline in Africa. But because of a very unfortunate situation called a project called Project Mawingu, now they acquired a number of aeroplanes, including the Embraers, including the 777s and the 787, was that project was done in a manner that was not properly structured, that left Kenya with heavily indebted. And as a result of that project, there has been historical debt problem within Kenya Airways. Even when Kenya Airways tries to come up and come back to proper operation, that historical debt has outweighed the efforts that are being made to grow the organization. So in the process, this organization has become heavily indebted. It has had to seek for support from the government of Kenya, from our local banks who came to the rescue, and from, of course, the lending that it got from other international banks. As we speak now, Kenyan government has put up to 50 billion shillings to support Kenya Airways. Practically speaking, if you, plus the guarantees that the government has put, if you were to convert the debt into equity, Kenya Airways would be owned by the government of Kenya to up to 80 to almost 90% of the ownership of the company. But there was a deliberate decision that was made to make sure that it remains a private company that has more than 50% of the shares being by the private sector. But then it leaves it very heavily indebted. When we came to office, the first assignment of our president was to rescue Kenya Airways by paying a debt that had accrued of up to 10 billion. At the moment, the Kenya Airways have never been able to get out of that. They are currently implementing a project called Project Kifaru, whose objective is to make sure that we do away with the non-performing fleet of Kenya Airways, particularly the Embraers that were acquired but do not have the capacity to service our regional demands in terms of cargo and the capacity to be able to carry luggage when they're carrying passengers to different destinations in Africa. We all know that at the moment, Kenya Airways is still struggling with the question of this debt. Number two, it is struggling to acquire new equipment that could be able to service its routes. We know that the Kenya Airways also has another challenge they do is their agreement, the CBA with their pilots. As a result of that CBA, the Kenya Airways has not been able to have a conversation with their staff to see how they are going to reduce the cost of operations in terms of salaries and benefits. And the last time I had a conversation with the management of Kenya Airways, because now we sit at the board, the PS sits there, and we provide strategic policy support to Kenya Airways. The company is struggling to look at the question of its operation cost. Yeah. This week, there have been so many complaints across the board in terms of aborted flights, lack of spares, flights being cancelled. But then what is the long-term solution for this?
First of all, I just wanted to say that the spare parts issue is global. It's not just for Kenya Airways. But also it has, because of the pressure of the holiday period, Kenya Airways cannot be able to, with the few aeroplanes they have, to be able to ground any aeroplane. If they do so, you feel the impact in terms of the congestion that takes place and then flight cancellations. Number two is that I had a conversation with the management also, and they were of the opinion that last year, such a time as this, you remember the pilots went on strike. And I am told now the pilots are demanding a pay increase of up to 400% from their salary. And, you know, they have timed it at a very strategic time when we really need the airline to be operating. So somehow, you know, the stories we hear is that
some of the staff are a bit sluggish in terms of availing themselves for service. And I just want to use this medium, because I've spoken to them directly, that the business of rescuing Kenya Airways is not just for the management. It's not for Mr. Kilavuka alone or the chair of the board. It is a responsibility of the entire staff of Kenya Airways and the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya have already played their role. They have put 50 billion of their money. Our routes today are not being constructed. Some of the projects we would want to implement, we would have done it if we had that 50 billion. But because we know the strategic benefit that comes from with having Kenya Airways in terms of tourism, in terms of aviation hub, we have supported Kenya Airways.
So
but this support cannot be
Waziri, to an appeal to the crew members and the pilots and not a management restructuring.
I was starting from there. I will come to the management restructuring. On that part, first of all, we need all of us to start supporting the company, to start with, from the management to the staff. Number two, there is a conversation that is ongoing about getting a strategic partner to support Kenya Airways. And I am aware that they have already got a transaction advisor who is already working on getting a strategic partner to bring equity and take part of the shares of the company and inject resources that can allow this company to expand. I have been in these trips with the CEO of the company to Europe and to China, looking for strategic partners that can be able to invest in Kenya Airways. The president himself, you remember the president even had a conversation with Delta Airlines about the possibility of partnering together. I believe that in 2024, it is the year that we must get a strategic partner to come and inject capital into Kenya Airways so that it can be able to sustain itself. Because
how much are we talking about here, Waziri? Because
we have a debt
appearing before the Public Debt and Privatization Committee revealed that KQ owes lenders 188 billion shillings.
The total debt portfolio of Kenya Airways, including for operational costs and the debt that is serviceable, is almost 300 billion.
Close to 300 billion.
300 billion. The one, it owes the government of Kenya, it owes the Kenya Airports Authority, it owes also the lenders from outside there. This 188 billion is basically the direct loan that they owe the government of Kenya and the lenders that have supported their projects. They have a plan to do away with some of the fleet that is not performing, and to do away with it, you have also to have some resources to do this kind of restructuring. I believe that if this plan is well followed, if it was not, because already Kenya Airways was beginning to have operational profit, the only problem is that we have historical debt, grandfather problems that are weighing down Kenya Airways. And the discussion we are having, and the president himself is leading these discussions. He has admitting, even today, before I came here, the president had convened another meeting to just think through. We're asking ourselves, practically the government of Kenya is the majority shareholder if they were to liquidate the debt into equity. The question we're asking ourselves is going forward, if you want to sort out the question of its fleet, if you want to sort out the question of its operational cost, if you want to make sure that their pilots, are operating at the maximum required standards of all pilots in the region, what is that we need to do as a country to be able to achieve that? And what is the role of the government of Kenya going forward without continuing to inject, resources that would have been used elsewhere? And that's why I'm using this medium, because there is an existing conversation between the management and the pilots and the staff that it is time for each one of us to still make the sacrifice that we need if we are going to return Kenya Airways to be the pride of Africa that it is. The last thing I want to say to Kenyans is that not every incident related to an airline amounts to, allows us to perpetuate fear-mongering. If, for example, the Kenya Airways flight that went to Rwanda and found that it was foggy, it was not our airline alone. Rwandan Airline and other airlines found the place foggy and they had to return from different destinations back. If you find an airline, for example, like the Kenya Airways left, took off from Cape Town, and went and came back because the pilot thought that it was not safe to continue flying, it means that Our pilots are very responsible, and they understand the importance of making sure that safety is number one.
But when you cancel flights and
for canceling, for canceling flights, I was just talking about first the safety part of it. So not every incident that I have been inside Kenya Airways, a plane taking off, and then in the middle of the runway they stop. You are almost going, and then they stop, and then they will come back to check some incident that the pilot thought that it was important to make sure that it's clear. So safety is an important.
They didn't check that before they were taking off. Other airlines don't do this, Waziri.
They do. They do. The only difference, many airlines. I have boarded other airlines where you go up, you come down, you land safely, and you're told you go sleep, you can travel tomorrow. The only difference is that when these incidents are reported, those airlines, their countries do not attack the airline. They understand that there's a safety precaution. But in terms of cancellation of flights, it is the pressure, particularly at that period of time, is the pressure that the airline is facing when it comes to its fleet.
Okay.
But also, we have told Kenya Airways, in no uncertain terms, that they must treat their customers better, that they must also communicate better, and they must. It is better to cancel flights 2-3 days early, to inform passengers 2-3 days early, because the cost of again accommodating these passengers is going to increase the problem, the financial problem that you're having.
The government owns about 48.9%.
Exactly.
So is government looking to relinquish these shares to bring in the strategic investor you're talking about?
Practically speaking, with the debt itself, government could have owned 80. So if the strategic partner comes in, for example, you will be able then to convert a sizable amount of the debt into equity, and then be able to convert it then to a share for the investor who is coming in.
When do you think this will be done?
We have, as I told you, Kenya Airways has already picked a transactional advisor. That advisor has told them that by June next year or September next year, we should be able to get, latest September next year, we should be able to get a strategic investor.
Okay.
And I believe that this is a very profitable company. It has the potential to grow, and I believe that any strategic investor was going to buy into this company.
Yeah. You had fired the MD for KAA because of a generator that didn't pick. You don't think that this is an instance where someone should take responsibility?
In terms of the Kenya Airways?
Yes.
In terms of Kenya Airways, that someone should take responsibility? Well, practically, let me say this. First of all, Kenya Airways is a private company. Okay? There is an extent that we can do as government in terms of firing or hiring somebody. But the conversation we've had with the board and with the management so far is that they are trying their best to make sure that the company, they turn around the fortunes of the company. So it would be unfair for me to just wake up and say somebody should be fired, because these people are inheriting a historical problem, and they were not there when the company invested in this project Mawingu that caused all these problems. So I am convinced so far that the project that of reform, they call it Project Kifaru, that has been put in place by Kenya Airways is capable of turning around the fortunes of the company.
Okay.
But we must have an honest conversation about the place of the CBA between the Kenya Airways and their own pilots, because most of the investors who have wanted to invest have always said that this is a very rigid CBA and the cost of operation is higher, because compared to other airlines and how other airlines reward their pilots, this CBA may become an impediment towards investing. Okay. So we must have an honest conversation around that issue, and that's why I was saying each of one of us, both the employees of the company, the investors must be able to, and the government must be able to bridge the gap and be able to have an honest understanding that it is better for the health of the company for all of us to make a sacrifice in one way or another.
Is the JKA roof still leaking?
Well, it's not leaking now, but there is no guarantee that it cannot leak tomorrow.
So it has not been fixed, that's what you're saying?
Well, what that corner that was fixed, was fixed, but the problem of JKA is bigger than that small corner where it was raining. You know that we have a big tent at JKIA that has outlived its period and time and usefulness. We know that the dilapidated infrastructure at the airport, particularly the Terminal 1E, and even in the domestic terminal, is something that needs to be fixed. Even where rehabilitation was done, some of it was not done up to the standard that was required. That is why, you remember, I put together a committee, and that committee, you know, I saw some people making fun of why I put a committee. I think, first of all, let me say this. We found JKI having many challenges. And JKI is not a problem of, and when I say this, many people say you're blaming President Uhuru. Why would I blame President Uhuru and not blame President Kibaki or President Moi? You know, JKI is many years behind schedule in terms of what we needed to do to keep ourselves, our airport being more modern. And I said earlier in my comments here, and I know many people were sending me messages and telling me, oh yeah, what do you mean by saying that Rwanda is an autocracy? Autocracy is not a bad thing. Many people in Kenya have said that we should have what is called, they call it benevolent dictatorship. Rwanda have chosen a certain form of leadership where they give strength to their president, and their president has used it for positive good. Okay. That's why our friends, for example, who have gone to Rwanda, realize that Rwanda now, without much debate, are building a new airport with a new runway, because decisions are made. You know, there will be no court order, there will be no injunction, there will be no debate. So the same thing that we are talking about here, we are behind schedule. Why am I also using the Rwanda example? We should have built our new terminal in 2014. But because of the fights that we had between ourselves, the contractor was asking extra money, about 10 billion, and then President Uhuru Kenyatta just terminated the agreement. And then again, there was a question of how to terminate that agreement. When I was appointed, I promised the country that the first thing we were going to do is to make sure that we sort out that case, because it was in France and it was going to cost the country almost 20 billion shillings. Thankfully, with the support of His Excellency the President, we have been able to do away with that case and amicably with the contractor. And now we have started the process of advertising for construction of a greenfield terminal that will be done under PPP. And that advertisement is going by mid-January next year. And hopefully by, as I said, by 2027, we should have a new terminal that will sort out all this mess that should have gone to infrastructure. Let me tell you, it's an embarrassment. Yeah, it's an embarrassment that a generator cannot kick in an airport. Yeah, it's also a bigger embarrassment that a cabinet secretary has to walk to an agency like KA to go and ask, where is the generator? Can you connect to that wire? Can you do these other things? It's because, again, Kenya Airports Authority, in terms of human resource management, had been mismanaged completely. More than half of the general managers were acting, okay? More than 200 of critical staff were not there. And when we appointed the board, we told them they must fix those issues. Already they're almost done with fixing the general managers, the managers of various sectors. Can you imagine our airport does not have even a maintenance policy? You don't have a clear system of maintenance of the infrastructure. That is why we were sitting there and we are testing now generators. We don't know. Today you go there, they tell you, okay, the generator will be connected. You go back and they say it cannot synchronize. You heard the Deputy President mentioning about the challenges that we have had in terms of those generators. We shouldn't be debating about generators, but we are doing. Why? Because there is a systemic historical problem. Okay. And I have told the board that once we finish all this process of human resource, I believe that you can have the best equipment, you can have the best system, but you must have the best people to run these systems. And I believe that because this process is going to end before mid-January, all these senior staff will be in place. We should be able to now advertise the position of the managing director and get a full-time, not an acting managing director. I tell you, Trevor, that we are going to turn the fortunes of the airport. But let me mention a few things that we've done. One, when we came in, there were consistent power blackouts. Forget about generator that was only affecting a few terminals at JKI. In Eldoret, it was getting dark. A plane could not take the runway. You see the lighting at JKI never affected the runway, never affected the control tower. But the Eldoret one was bad. We made sure that the contract was put in place and was fixed. Okay. We made sure that we opened new routes in Kakamega. Now passengers are flying to Kakamega, in Kabunde, both in Homa Bay and in Migori.
Gloria Oruoba is complaining about Kisii.
Kisii, yes, I'll come to the Kisii issue. And then, you know, we have extended the runway in Diani. And I managed to sit down and negotiate for some squatters who are there. Now, Diani planes can fly, Jambo Jet can fly full, having full passengers because we have sorted the issue of Diani. Mombasa, we are dealing with also the infrastructure issues within Mombasa itself. We are fixing Garissa with the military, and I've written and we're supporting the military to be able to fix Garissa airstrip. Soon, I have found contracts that were badly awarded in Lokichokyo, in Nakuru, in some of these airstrips across the country, and we are fixing these contracts. Kitale Airport now is operational. Lodwar is operating, and we want to make sure that we maintain it well. So the things we are trying to do to make sure that local travel is also facilitated in the aviation sector. I came in and I approved the aviation policy, and now it's done. It's ready for cabinet approval, and then it goes to Parliament. So there are a number of things that we have done in the aviation stage, in the aviation space, including proper management of Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, investigation of accidents being improved, and Kenya being one of the leading countries in the world in terms of research on green energy on the aviation sector. Okay. So these things cannot. You know, I was seeing many people speaking the other day. They wanted to cloud all my performance. We have worked so hard as a ministry with all our staff to make sure that we deal with the aviation sector. But, you know, this generator was going to be a black spot. But I tell you, it was important that these things came out as early as this, because it even gives us the more energy to fix the many problems that we've been having. And I promise you that in the next 3 years, once we build a new terminal, as I said jokingly the other day, those who say crucify us will be singing Hosanna, Hosanna.
So 3 years. So everything you're putting in by 2027.
By 2027, because
your task force had recommended installation of a new roof.
Yes.
And exit pathways, foot pathways, and also luggage handling and other canopy.
Luggage handling, we are also dealing with
2027.
But those ones can be done early. Things like drainage system, we have now fixed. Even this generator issue, actually, we have now gone ahead to say it's not have to use these backup generators. I have said they must buy independent generators for Terminal 1B and 1E.
So first time you fired the MD there,
well, the MD at that point in time,
you didn't fire anyone.
Because, as I said earlier, there was even no one to fire. Have you had my explanation about the human resource? You don't have nobody to fire there.
So was it solely his fault?
We are yet to restock actually to resource the engineering department of the KA. It is the most abandoned one, yet the most critical in terms of infrastructure.
So in hindsight, was it Alex Gitari's fault that this...
Well, first of all, I did not fire. I didn't fire Alex Gitari. I did not fire. He actually left on amicable resolution. He just felt that, you know, the place was too chaotic that in his remaining 1 year, he was not going to do much to be able to change it. And he opted to say that at his age, he's about to go to retire. He would rather give chance to some other people to be able to run the show. And I can tell you that that was a good decision. I'm a very compassionate man. Partly, maybe that's the reason why some people may want to take advantage of the same. But I am not in the business of just working out and firing people. That was a honest conversation where he offered himself to say, in the circumstance of what's happening at KA, he would rather take early retirement.
You had to address the Kisii airstrip.
Yes, the Kisii airstrip is called... why am I forgetting? The Kisii airstrip is unfortunately located on a hill. And I have had a meeting with all the Kisii leaders, and they know that the aeronautical report, Sironga, I was forgetting the Sironga. The aeronautical report indicates that that place is too small for any proper airline to function. And we've been working together with the people of Kisii to find a nearby area where you can put a proper airport. And some of the areas that we were scouting, again, moved all the way to Transmara. So it defeats the purpose of calling it an airport within the Kisii. The airstrip in Sironga is too small. It's on top of a hill. It's not safe. The approach is hilly.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't want to build infrastructure that is not being utilized, you know, because the investment that has been put there is high, but the returns are very low.
Okay.
And maybe I should take this opportunity to also address the question of Embu airstrip.
Okay.
Embu airstrip is a good airstrip, but most of the leaders came and said we must make it an airport. But they also went ahead and told me that there's not enough land to be able to make it an airport because it's occupied and there is no proper place for extension of the same. And when I said that Embu and JKIA is near, what I meant is that when it comes to cargo, because many people are talking about cargo, if you ask me today the interest of the people of Embu, when it comes to cargo, you don't have enough runway in Embu to carry cargo. But if you ask me the interest of people in Embu, between looking for land and paying a lot of money to do a runway, and I was from Embu, I would prefer the country to extend the Sagana dual carriage all the way to Meru. It would make greater sense, and then put in place a link for railway than an airport, because this is a place that you can enjoy more driving if the roads were good, and it's nearer if the railway was there.
There are quite a number of questions coming from the people, Waziri, and I'd like to bring that up in a short while, but let me bring up an issue here that quite a number of people have talked about. Why is it necessary for NTSA to raise charges at this time when Kenyans are complaining about overtaxation? Let's take, for example, ownership, for example. What justifies increasing the fee from the current 1,160 to 10,000 shillings? A normal number plate will now be 5,000 shillings, up from 3,000 shillings.
You know,
and there's still more. Changing of a color of a vehicle will now increase from 500 shillings to 20,000 shillings. That's 3,900% increase.
First of all, by the time somebody has the luxury to change a color of a vehicle, that person has the resources. Painting a car alone to change the color is how much?
That will be 70 or 80,000 depending.
Absolutely.
On
so
still,
do you want to tell me a person who has the luxury to repaint their vehicle and change the color for 100,000, no, just say 400,000, cannot be able to support 20,000 for the same?
But
no.
Doesn't that beat the
in fact,
because you're working
in fact,
when you increase the price, then people won't do it. So then you lose the revenue anyway.
If you look at the point of number plates, the cost of the metal plate itself has gone high, you know, so you cannot continue charging 1,000 that was charged maybe 10 years ago of a vehicle that the cost of that number plate, the production, the number plates are now more modern, the signage and so forth. Even the cost alone of producing that number plate cannot be 1,000. It's more than 1,000. So we may have debate of how much that costs. And you know, a number plate, you get it once. You don't do it twice.
And
so
if
I bought a car for 1 million and I'm told only 10,000 for the number plate, I don't think that is too much for it. Change of ownership, the same. It's like transfer. If you were to buy land today, you're going to pay 4% in Nairobi to do something called stamp duty. So in the same manner, I don't know why it would be difficult for a person who was able to change ownership of a vehicle to pay transfer fee. So all these things are meant to make sure that the services that are being provided by NTSA in terms of safety, in terms of registration, in terms of supporting the technology that we have employed to make sure that people can get car searches in good time. All these services require resources, and we don't want, again, NTSA to go back to Treasury and, again, tax the same people. Let the people who are capable of paying, who have vehicles, they would rather be the ones who are paying than to tax every other person, including Mama Mboga, for a service that is going to be consumed by a specific number of people. We may debate about how much exactly, because there is a process of public participation. You saw that proposal was being presented in Parliament. There is still public participation. It's not an agreed figure. But you cannot tell me that charges should remain the same for about 10 years. There must be a give and take at somewhere, finally, when those charges be replaced. And let me use this opportunity to say this. NTSA itself, and I want to request Kenyans, when I received a lot of complaints from the people of Kenya, such as that they don't find their vehicles, or sometimes there are more than one number plate on the same, one number plate on more than one vehicle. Sometimes it took long to get their driving license or to get their number plates. I walked to the NTSA itself and I supervised that process. And I looked at the laxity that was there. And we were able to unlock a number of things that are related to registration and release of these number plates and driving license. I want to tell the people of Kenya, I am open on my Facebook and Twitter. If there is any Kenyan who still does not receive their service in good time, I am more than happy to respond to them, even tomorrow, the day after, and I will take NTSA to task. Okay. And I have told Kenyans, you should not pay any bribe. Instead of paying any bribe, you better report that to our office or report to any other office, because it is your right. Once they pay this amount of money that people are paying, they must be served. And they cannot be served. That's where I will fire somebody.
Okay. Let's get some feedback from people. Quite a number of questions coming in, but there's a first one here. Gloria still wants timelines on the Suneka airstrip.
As I said, it's not possible.
So are we doing something else?
I told her it's not possible for Suneka to be an airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a plan?
It is in black and white. It's in the aeronautical report. Any other location when we establish will be part of public participation between us and the local leadership.
So for now,
and when we start with the leadership, Suneka airstrip cannot become an airport because there is no land for it to become an airport. But if the leadership, and we were with the governor, the senator, the MPs, if there is another location that we can find within Kisii and for us to build a good airstrip, we are ready to build that airstrip.
Okay.
That was the same case with Kericho. You remember before Madaraka, we tried to do the Kericho airstrip. Again, we had a problem with the ownership of the land because Ekatera, who owned the tea estates around there, complained that we entered into their land without their consent.
Okay.
But I'm happy to report that the county government of Kericho and ourselves are in negotiation with Ekatera, and hopefully we can come to amicable solutions so that we can continue the process of providing also an airstrip in Kericho. Because why I needed to mention this is because it has become a punching back by, it's become a political excuse and political tool by political busybodies calling themselves queenpins, who always go there to talk about this airstrip here, this road here, and so forth, because they're idlers and they're unable to do anything else. And so we have said that we have a plan. The government of President William Ruto has a plan, and we put it in our manifesto that we are going to make bottom-up transport, which is the local transport. We are going to make it cheaper for Kenyans to be able to use air transport to go to different parts of the country.
All right, let's bring up the feedback and see the questions that you're raising here before we release you. Let's bring that up at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. Okelo Mwalimu says, can CS Kipchumba Murkomen confirm whether or not he conducted an audit of infrastructural projects which were commissioned under His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta? If the response is to the affirmative, what has his ministry done to ensure such projects don't turn into white elephants? Okay.
The biggest, yes, that is right. The biggest problem we have in the infrastructure sector is the road sector. Okay. Because as I told you, there is a commitment of 700 billion. Yeah, and a current pending bill of works done and not paid of 150 billion. It's a big challenge against the 46 billion this financial year for paying 150 billion. And for us to complete in the before next election, 700 billion. I want to confirm this. One, we are going to complete all the roads that have been committed. I know questions have been asked about Mau Mau roads. All names, whatever kind of name, there is no county that except Lamu, there is no other county across the country that does not have a road that is pending. And all those pending roads, we are going to make sure that they are completed. But and how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that?
Timeline.
First, well, we could have completed them in 2 or 3 years, but it is resources the problem. When we came to office, I am probably the cabinet secretary maybe in Africa who has traveled to China 3 times in 1 year, because the president instructed us to make sure that we have a conversation with our development partners, because most of our contractors are from China as a country. And we wanted to have an honest conversation with them. And eventually, when the president came to have a meeting with President Xi Jinping, and I was present in that meeting, President Xi Jinping agreed to the request of our president to have a conversation on how we can get financial support to complete this road. So you had the president speak last night about the same. We are hoping that in 2 or 3 months we should be able to get that support that will progress most of our projects, the 4,000 kilometers of pending roads across the country. And I want to say this without fear of contradiction, because I told the summit today, all the governors and the president and the deputy president, the ministers who are in the summit, that most governors who understand the situation where we are in are very supportive of what we are doing as national government to find resources to complete the roads. But some few, 1 or 2 who do not appreciate or who know it, but they want to do politics around it, will try to say the national government is refusing to do roads in my county. I want to tell Kenyans for their comfort, there is no county that doesn't have a pending road, and there's no county that doesn't have a stalled road. I just want to request them to be patient on the development of these roads as we fix these issues, because we cannot borrow any further, and we made a conscious decision that we should not borrow. And because of that conscious decision of not borrowing, the sector that has suffered most is the road sector. When I went to Parliament, some MPs who were complaining understood, because they sit there to do the budget, and I told them this is 46 billion against 150. Which contractor, every road, some roads we owe contractor 8 billion, but the budget provides only 200 million. Even if you give him 200 million, he cannot return if you owe him 8 billion. Yeah. So what we've said is that because our president knows where we are going, and us as ministers have to support him, we cannot push our country to borrow at the moment. But through this strategic conversation, bilateral and multilateral with our partners, we are going to make sure that all the roads are complete. And I want to thank also the World Bank, the African Development Bank, because some of the roads are continuing now, and the European Investment Bank and the European Union for their support, because all these development partners have made it possible for some areas where you see the contractors are working because they have provided resources for those roads.
Let's bring up another question here and see what you're saying at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. And Julio Caesar says, Honorable Murkomen, is it really fair that Kenyans from all counties pay road maintenance levy, but when it comes to distribution of roads projects, more than 20 counties miss out? I think you've addressed that part.
I think because this is maintenance of the roads, I think, I don't know where this gentleman got his information. It must have been part of this propaganda that was there before I went to Parliament, because I saw somebody generated propaganda and then said certain counties have roads and they don't have. For avoidance of doubt, on the road maintenance levy, every constituency gets exactly amount, from Lamu East to Migori to Homa Bay. Every constituency gets 64 million this financial year. Every. For the maintenance of levy. So there is no excuse. There is no excuse that, you know, there is a county that gets less or more than the other. Every county gets fair share of its resources for maintenance, and we make sure that this is adhered to, because we have no choice. It's the law.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Shamalia, doctor, says the CS should fast track the removal of police roadblocks on the roads. Why should a policeman or a woman stay rooted in one spot for hours in the name of enforcing traffic rules? That's how corruption sets in. It's primitive and a sign of colonial mentality. The discussion about roadblocks, we've had this discussion, and Professor Kindiki, the Minister of Interior, has also addressed himself to this issue on reduction of the police officers who are having roadblocks. You can't do away 100% roadblocks, because there are certain security operations that come with roadblocks. But roadblocks for purpose of traffic enforcement should be stopped in the near future once we put the cameras in place. But also in advanced countries, and I'm sure we will reach there in the near future, because we are quickly adopting technology as a country, we will reach a stage where all policemen will have body cameras. Yeah, body cameras that record everything they do. So that then it will take care of, you see in some of those countries, the body cams are helpful because of harassment of, say in the US, for example, black people who feel like they're being targeted and harassed. So in the same way, I look forward in future where this technology can be applied, where our police officers will be wearing body cameras that will make sure that they cannot take bribes, the few who want to do so cannot do it, or they cannot harass the people. But for now, a decision was made for purpose of clearing, especially Northern Corridor, from Mombasa to Malaba, to make sure that we reduce the number of the roadblocks. Okay. Anita Soina says ask him to at least make sure we have more than one scanning machine at the international arrivals. It is not friendly to guests and to everyone to spend more time queuing than flying.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
There is no defense on that. We are in the procurement process of putting both scanners at the Kenya Ports Authority in Mombasa and all our airports, particularly Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where it has about 2 scanners. Sometimes one is working, the other is not working, and it creates queues. We believe that we will bring even more modern scanners. KRA do not have to open cargo to check luggage. Of course, they scan now. Very few of them are being opened, but we look forward to eliminating completely the requirement to open bags except for obvious security situations.
Okay. Trey says, ask CS Murkomen, number 1, KQ's strategic investor, why Delta deal didn't go through? And can government of Kenya speak with Emirates, Lufthansa, Qatar to be strategic investors?
Since now we are doing a roadshow, of course the Delta one, it's not like it didn't go through, but Delta is still open to come and invest. Yeah, but you know, Delta Airline, the fleet of Delta Airline it makes Kenya Airways look like a very small thing, you know. By the time you convince a big company to come and invest in our country, you have to make a serious business case. Perhaps it's easier to convince airlines that are operating in the neighborhood, in the Middle East and so forth. But, you know, America is too far for you to sometimes convince some of those airlines to partner with ours. But nothing is impossible because now they have a strategic partner and they are going to go on a roadshow. Yeah. We should look forward by June, latest September, and see which strategic partner is able to come in to invest in Kenya Airways.
Okay. The expressway. Has it been fixed?
Expressway.
Sometimes back. That's
yes.
700 million.
Expressway, yes. At that point
How
in time.
How did you get that figure?
That was a rough estimate that was given immediately by the engineers a day after because of the, you know, many people were making jokes about it because they thought that I was talking about the flower ports and the like. I was talking about the equipment. You remember what was destroyed is this equipment that operates the speed, that calculates the speed, that opens the barriers. So the machinery, the equipment that was inside was estimated to that figure when you look at the exchange of the dollar. But of course, still no compensation has been made by Kenya because the further consultation is going on with the Moja Express that is running the expressway. But expressway is something that we must be all proud of because it has made it possible for many investors to realize that you can invest in Kenya in terms of a road asset and be able to construct a road and run it. And I'm happy also because when I came to office, many Kenyans said that we must push the company to have a dropping point somewhere in city center, CBD. You can see we are almost done with that. In another 1 month, we should be able to open a dropping point near Parliament there, near the railway to drop Kenyatta Avenue and you come back to Parliament. That will be easier. And we are going to have another one at Museum Hill. And all this is not being paid by the people of Kenya. I saw somebody on Twitter the other day said, I have seen a dropping point, an exit near town. Again, Murkomen has used our money to support the expressway. No, the investors done this with their own resources. And as I told you earlier, the most beautiful thing about the expressway is that the government of Kenya does not have guarantee of traffic volumes. And this is the kind of road investments that we are looking for the one of Rironi to Eldoret. I want to assure you, all the people who are going to western side of the country, I understand the pain of sleeping on the road. I have used that road so many times. Of course, there is now air transport where you fly to Eldoret and so forth. But the road itself has to be fixed. And I want to assure them that this government, under my supervision of the ministry and under the leadership of the president, will be the one that will do the longest expressway in the continent.
Okay. But also, we noticed that during the rains, the old Mombasa Road, which is where the expressway has been constructed over, was flooding. There was no drainage.
But not this time round.
Plans to correct that. And
did you realize?
Will the contractor be surcharged for that?
Did you realize that this time round there was no flooding?
There was still flooding.
No, not like before, because the contractor is on site. We have 2 contractors, one from Nyayo to Wayaki Way there, and the other one from Nyayo to the end of Syokimau there. They're doing the drainage and they're doing the road itself. What the only challenge we have now with that, with the water that is coming from Mombasa Road is actually it's draining to the airport. And it's part of the reason why some parts of the airport are flooding. I have told Kenya to work together with KA to make sure that the drainage is well fixed to ensure that Mombasa Road is done. The contractors that are doing the road below, we had to procure them because initially the contractor who did the expressway was asking about 10 billion to do the lower road. And as I told you, that the lower road was our responsibility. The upper road was for the investor. So our responsibility is now to make sure that that is restored. And you can see some good work is being done at a reasonable figure than what was expected before.
Okay, I'll give you a chance for closing remarks, Waziri.
Well, I just want to tell Kenyans that I preside over a ministry that is capital intensive. The results of that ministry are not instant. It's not like instant coffee. And for that reason, the transport sector, we have done, by the way, we are doing very well when it comes to our port. Our port at the moment, in 1 year, we have been able to turn around the port efficiency. A ship turns around in 2 days, when in our neighboring country turnaround of a ship is 40 days. We are one of the most efficient ports now in the continent because we have invested in better equipment. We have also invested in automation. We cleared this year 35 million tons of goods, and we moved from 1.4 million TEUs of containers to 1.6 million TEUs of containers. We have, meaning that business is booming. Even on the railway, we have moved from moving 1.4 million tons of cargo. Now we are doing 1.7. 4 million tons of cargo. We are doing 7.1 million tons of cargo now in the railway. For the first time this year, recently, our ship from Kisumu Port docked in Mwanza, meaning that we are able to carry goods from Mombasa all the way to Mwanza in Tanzania, serving Mwanza and serving the parts of Entebbe, Uganda. We have, in the transport sector, we are making good progress and in a steady manner and without burdening the people of Kenya with more debt. You know that we just launched a commuter rail that will carry our people from now town all the way to Ngong. We hope that when we get the resources, we move it to Kiserian and we move it to Rongai. It will make most of the hustlers who have been working to have transport that they can use. We are investing in the BRT system that has stalled for long. The contractor will resume this January to complete line 1 from Kasarani all the way to Kenyatta Hospital. We are also investing in other routes using BRT with the support of European Union, with the Korean government, with the Chinese government. So all these investments we are leveraging on the good name that President William Ruto has made for us all over the world. Some people have questioned his traveling, but for the times I've traveled, for example, went recently to France and to Berlin and to France, and we went for 3 days. Of the 3 days, we slept 2 nights inside the plane. It's only 1 night we slept in Europe. And every time we go with him, it's business, business, business. I've never had to even look at which building is next door. It's always rushing from one business to the other. And because our president has been so hardworking, what we have done in the infrastructure sector is to make sure that we leverage on his good name to invest in our country. And I can tell you, this nation in these 5 years will have the highest private investment in our infrastructure sector than before, because we have no luxury like the previous governments of borrowing. Ours is now to use investment to make sure that we resolve our issues of infrastructure.
All right. Waziri, thank you so much for making time for us. Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, Cabinet Secretary, Roads and Infrastructure. Asante sana for making time.
Asante sana.
We're taking a quick break here on Monday Report. When we come back, it's time for some sporting action. Here's what's coming up.